My husband disappeared without a trace in the middle of the night, leaving behind nothing but signed divorce papers. And 6 months later, I found him on my own construction site, not as the man I married, but as a day laborer covered in dust. When he finally told me the truth about why he vanished, my entire world shattered in a way I never expected. Before I reveal what actually happened that changed everything, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Winds of Thought, and tell me in the watching from today. Now, let's dive in. People assume that wealth solves every problem. But in my experience, money didn't protect me, it trapped me. I grew up in a family where status was everything. My father had built a commercial real estate empire from nothing, and by the time I was 30, I was running a significant portion of it. Magazines called me a self-made success. Business journals praised my leadership. But none of that can do what I truly valued: my family. My husband, Adrian, came from a completely different world. He didn't inherit wealth. He didn't have connections. In fact, the very first time my father met him, I saw the disdain in his eyes as he looked at Adrian's modest clothes and calloused hands. Later that night, my father pulled me aside and said, "People like him will never understand what we've built." But Adrian never cared about status. He was steady, thoughtful. The kind of man who would stay up late fixing a leaky faucet instead of calling a repair service. He remembered the little things: my favorite tea, the name of every person he met, the songs our daughter loved. And he could make our Mia laugh even on the hardest days. That was the man I chose. We had been married for nearly 7 years. To everyone on the outside, we looked like the perfect family. But inside my father's mansion, there was always tension simmering beneath the surface. My father never openly insulted Adrian, but his silence during dinners, his dismissive glances, they said everything. One evening after Adrian left the table early to put Mia to bed, my father leaned toward me with a cold expression. "You're still young enough to fix this," he said quietly. I looked at him confused. "Fix what?" He set down his glass. "This situation you've put yourself in." He gestured vaguely toward where Adrian had been sitting. "You need someone who can actually help grow what I built. My business partner's son would be a far better match." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Dad, I'm already married." He simply nodded. "Marriages can be undone." I told him I loved Adrian. His response still echoes in my mind: "Love doesn't build legacies." I didn't respond that night. I told myself to let it go. We continued living our lives, ignoring the tension as best we could. We focused on Mia, on our quiet evenings together, on the small rituals that made our marriage feel unbreakable. Then came the night that changed everything. It was storming outside. I had returned home late from a grueling investor meeting. The house felt wrong immediately: too quiet, too still. Normally, Maya would come running the second I opened the door, her laughter filling the hallway. But that night, there was nothing. I called out for Adrian. Silence. My heart started beating faster as I moved through the rooms. Then I saw it: a single envelope on the kitchen counter, with my name written in handwriting I knew too well. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were divorce papers, already signed by Adrian. My legs nearly gave out. I searched the entire house. His clothes were gone. His phone went straight to voicemail. And Maya's small suitcase, it was missing too. My daughter was gone. For what felt like an eternity, I couldn't breathe. I called Adrian over and over. Nothing. I reached out to his friends. No one knew anything. The night stretched into morning, and by dawn, my father arrived at my door. I don't even remember calling him. He walked into the living room, glanced at the papers on the counter, and let out a long sigh. So he finally did what everyone expected. I looked up at him, still in shock. "What are you talking about?" He shrugged. "He left. Men like that always do." My hands were shaking. "He took Mia." My father waved his hand dismissively. "He'll bring her back when he realizes he can't take care of her." Then he picked up the divorce papers. "Sign these and move on." I stared at him in disbelief. "He's my husband." "He was your husband," my father corrected coldly. "Now stop wasting your energy." I pushed the papers away. "No." His eyes narrowed. "You're embarrassing yourself, Clara." I stood my ground. "I'm not signing anything. I'm going to find him. My father actually laughed, a short, humorless sound. You're a billionaire. You really want to chase after a man who clearly ran away from you. But something in my gut told me this didn't add up. Adrian wouldn't leave without an explanation. He wouldn't take our daughter without a word. So I folded the papers, set them aside, and told my father I wasn't giving up. He looked at me with something between pity and frustration. You'll regret this, he said. But he didn't know what I knew. The man I married wasn't a coward. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. No calls, no messages, no trace of Adrian anywhere. I hired private investigators. I checked every lead. Nothing. Then, 6 months after he disappeared, I visited one of our major construction sites on the edge of the city, a massive apartment complex we were developing. It was supposed to be a routine inspection. I arrived in a business suit and hard hat, walking alongside the site manager as he rattled off progress updates. I was only half listening. Even after half a year, I still found myself scanning crowds for Adrian's face without realizing I was doing it. We moved deeper into the site. Dust hung in the air. Workers hauled materials between unfinished walls. And then, I stopped breathing. About 50 feet away, a man was lifting a cement bag onto his shoulder. His clothes were filthy. His hair was longer and unkempt. His face was streaked with grime. But I knew that posture. I knew the way he moved. Even after 6 months, it was Adrian. For a moment my mind refused to accept what my eyes were seeing. My husband, the man who used to sit beside me at corporate dinners, was standing there in worn-out boots and a torn shirt, working as a common laborer. My legs started moving before I could think. The site manager said something behind me, but I didn't hear him. I was walking fast, my heels sinking into the dirt. Adrian adjusted the bag on his shoulder, turned slightly, and our eyes met. The cement bag slipped from his grip and crashed to the ground. Workers nearby stopped what they were doing. But all I could see was his face, shock, then something that looked like fear. I didn't realize I was crying until I felt the tears on my cheeks. 6 months. 6 months of wondering, of grieving, of believing he had abandoned us. And now he was standing in front of me like nothing had happened. Anger erupted inside me. Before I could stop myself, my hand swung. The slap echoed across the site. Adrian didn't flinch. He just stood there, staring at me with those exhausted eyes. Why? My voice cracked. Why did you do this? Workers were watching, but I didn't care. You disappeared. You took our daughter. You left divorce papers like I meant nothing. Adrian finally spoke, his voice low and hoarse. Clara, please. I shook my head. Here. Now. You owe me that much. He glanced around at the watching faces, then back at me. Then he said something I never expected. Your father came to see me the night before I left. My anger paused. What? He continued quietly. He didn't come alone. There were 2 men with him. My stomach dropped. What are you talking about? Adrian's voice grew heavier. He told me if I didn't disappear from your life, he would make sure our daughter never saw another birthday. I felt like the ground had opened beneath me. He said I was embarrassing his family. He said you were meant to marry his business partner's son instead. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. And if I refused, Adrian added, Mia would be gone. The noise of the construction site faded into nothing. I could barely breathe. He threatened to kill our daughter. My voice was barely a whisper. Adrian nodded slowly. He said if you ever found out the truth, his people would know. I stared at him, my mind reeling. So you just left? His eyes glistened. I thought it was the only way to keep you both safe. He told me he had been moving between construction sites for 4 months, staying off the grid, so my father's people couldn't track him. I looked at his hands. Rough, cracked, nothing like the hands I remembered. The man standing before me had sacrificed everything to protect our family. And the man I had trusted my entire life, my own father, had orchestrated all of it. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. I just stood there, absorbing the truth. Then something hardened inside me. Adrian saw the change in my expression. Clara, don't do anything reckless. I wiped my face. Where is Mia? He exhaled. She's with my sister. Safe. Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by cold fury. My father had watched me suffer for 6 months. He had lied to my face, called Adrian worthless, pushed me to sign papers, all while knowing the truth. I made a decision in that moment. Later that week, my father hosted one of his grand dinner parties at the mansion. Relatives, business partners, and his closest associates filled the rooms. Sitting beside him at the head of the table was the man he had always wanted me to marry, his business partner's son. My father was in his element, smiling, toasting, believing everything was finally going according to his plan. When I walked in, the room quieted. He looked up with a satisfied expression. "There you are. I was just telling everyone you've finally come to your senses." I didn't smile. I walked to the center of the room, where everyone could see me. "Actually," I said clearly, "I have something to say." My father's smile faded slightly. "What is it?" I took a breath. "For 6 months. My father told everyone my husband left because he was greedy. He called him worthless. He pressured me to sign divorce papers." People shifted uncomfortably. My father's jaw tightened. "Clara, that's enough," I continued. "But that's not what happened." I looked directly at him. "You threatened him. You told him if he didn't disappear, you would make sure his daughter never saw another birthday." Gas rippled through the room. My father's face went pale. "That's a lie," he said quickly, but his voice wavered. I stepped closer. "The man you called worthless spent the last 6 months working as a construction laborer to protect his family." Silence. I saw my father's business partner lower his glass. I saw my cousins exchange shocked glances. "You destroyed my marriage," I said. "You made me believe my husband abandoned us." My father's voice turned sharp. "I did what was best for you." I shook my head. "No. You did what was best for your business." Then I removed the diamond ring I had worn since childhood, a symbol of our family's empire, and set it on the table beside me. "Keep your empire." The room erupted in whispers. My father stood up, his face red with fury. "You're being emotional. You'll regret this." I met his eyes without flinching. "I choose my family." I turned toward the door, his voice rose behind me. "If you walk out that door, don't expect to come back." I paused for just a moment. Then I kept walking. Outside the gates a car was waiting. Adrian stood beside it. Cleaned up but still carrying the weight of the last 6 months in his eyes. When he saw me walking toward him, uncertainty flickered across his face. I stopped in front of him. "Are you ready to come home?" He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. We got in the car and drove away, leaving behind the mansion, the fortune, and the man who thought power was more important than love. In the end, the truth was simple. The man my father called worthless was the only man who had ever truly loved me.